Look at what you're wearing right now. A jacket, maybe. Shoes with synthetic insoles. A synthetic base layer you bought without thinking twice. Now imagine none of it exists. No fabric, no rubber, no synthetic anything. Just your bare skin, an open landscape, and air so cold it can freeze the moisture in your lungs before you finish exhaling. That was the reality for every human being alive 20,000 years ago. And here is the part that should stop you cold. They didn't just survive it. Some of them lived longer, walked farther, and built more sophisticated solutions than survival experts with modern gear can replicate today. This is not a story about primitive people getting lucky. This is a story about the most extreme problem-solving our species has ever done. And it starts with a number, minus 58 degrees Fahrenheit. That is the recorded low temperature on the Eurasian steppe during the last glacial maximum, the peak of the last ice age roughly 20,000 years ago. At that temperature, exposed skin doesn't just hurt. It begins dying within 90 seconds. The wind doesn't feel cold, it feels structural, like something pressing through you, not around you. A modern human, even a trained one, dropped into those conditions without preparation, has a survival window measured in minutes, not hours. And yet, humans not only lived there, they raised children there, they built communities there, they made art there. How? The first answer archaeology gave us was wrong. For decades, the assumption was simple. Ice Age humans survived because of fire. Find a cave, light a fire, wait for spring. But then researchers started looking more carefully at the actual sites, and what they found changed everything. At Medzhirich in Ukraine, 15,000 years ago, 4 hunter-gatherer families built something that stopped the excavation team cold the first time they saw it. A house, not a cave, not a windbreak. A deliberately engineered multi-room dwelling constructed entirely from the bones of woolly mammoths. Over 150 mammoth skulls used as foundation weights. Curved tusks interlocked to form dome-shaped walls. Shoulder blades laid like shingles. The gaps packed with moss, fur, and compressed grass. The entire structure then skinned in stitched mammoth hide. Thick enough to stop wind, shaped at the apex to shed snow load. Experimental reconstructions of these structures have confirmed something remarkable. On a night when outside temperatures dropped to minus 40, interior temperatures inside a properly built mammoth bone house stayed above freezing using only a modest central fire. That is a 70-degree temperature difference, achieved with bones, stone tools, and knowledge. No electricity, no insulation foam, no vapor barrier technology. Just physics, understood so precisely that modern Arctic engineers studying these sites have described the thermal design as, and this is a direct quote, non-trivially sophisticated. But the bone houses were only one piece of it. Here is the survival method that researchers almost missed entirely. In Russia, at sites dating back over 30,000 years, archaeologists found something that looked at first like ancient garbage pits, circular depressions in the permafrost, just wide enough for a person to descend into, lined with packed animal fat and covered with flat stones. They weren't garbage pits, they were refrigerators, carved directly into the permafrost, the permanently frozen ground that sits just below the surface. These chambers maintained a constant temperature of around 28 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. Meat placed inside stayed frozen and safe for months. During the worst winter storms, when hunting was impossible and nothing could move above ground, these families were eating meat stored in September. They didn't just survive winter, they planned for it. Months in advance. With engineering precise enough to feed a group of 20 to 30 people through conditions that would shut down a modern city. And then there was the clothing. The image most people carry is simple. A caveman wrapped in a single animal skin. That image is wrong. At Sungir in Russia, a burial site dating to 34,000 years ago, researchers found the remains of a man buried in clothing so complex it took years to fully reconstruct. Over 3,000 individually drilled ivory beads, sewn in precise horizontal rows across a full-body garment. The bead placement revealed the structure: separate leg coverings, a fitted upper layer, a hood, boots with soles reinforced differently from the uppers. This was not a wrapped skin. This was a tailored cold weather system. Multiple layers, each layer selected for a specific thermal property. Inner layer, soft fur facing the skin, trapping a warm air layer against the body. Middle layer, wicking material pulling moisture away before it could cool against the skin. Outer layer, dense fur facing outward, shedding wind and precipitation. The same three-layer principle sold in every outdoor gear catalog today. Developed independently, 34,000 years before the first synthetic fiber existed. But here is what no documentary ever mentions. Clothing fails in the cold if you don't already know how to move. Modern survival training teaches something called the vapor trap problem. When you sweat in extreme cold, that moisture wicks into your insulation. As soon as you stop moving, it freezes. The insulation collapses. Body temperature drops within minutes. Ice Age humans solved this with behavior, not just materials. Archaeological analysis of winter campsites shows a consistent pattern. Work happened in short, intense bursts. Rest periods were built into strenuous activity, not because they were tired, but because continuous sweating inside heavy clothing was a death sentence. They had figured out the vapor trap problem 20,000 years before sports physiologists named it. Now, here's the part that may be the most extraordinary of all. At multiple Ice Age sites across Europe and Asia, researchers found evidence of a survival method so counterintuitive that early archaeologists assumed it was ritual behavior. People were walking long distances in the worst winter months, not migrating, not fleeing, walking in deliberate circuits of 10 to 15 miles, returning to the same base camp. For years, no one understood why. Then a research team studying winter physiology in 2014 found the answer. Sustained walking in cold air, at a moderate pace just below the point of heavy sweating, generates enough internal heat to maintain core body temperature with significantly less caloric cost than staying still and relying on external fire alone. Your body is a furnace, but only if you keep it moving at the right speed. Ice Age humans had not discovered this in a laboratory. They had discovered it by dying, generation after generation, until only the people who moved the right way in winter were left to teach their children. That is what survival actually looks like. Not luck, not instinct, error, elimination, and inheritance, repeated across thousands of winters until the knowledge was so embedded it didn't need to be spoken anymore. It was simply what you did. At the end of the Ice Age, roughly 11,000 years ago, temperatures rose. Forests returned. The mammoth bone houses were abandoned. The knowledge gradually became unnecessary and was lost. We spent the last century rediscovering it. Modern military Arctic survival programs are built on archaeological reconstructions of Ice Age techniques. The three-layer clothing system your cold weather jacket is based on. Reverse-engineered from burial sites. The permafrost food storage principle, rediscovered by Arctic researchers in the 1950s, thousands of years after your ancestors had already perfected it. Now look at what you're wearing again. The jacket, the shoes, the base layer you put on without thinking. Every single principle behind it was solved by people who had nothing. No synthetic materials, no thermometers, no survival manuals. Just cold. Death close enough to feel, and the refusal to stop thinking. You didn't invent warmth. You inherited it from people who paid for it in frostbite, in hunger, in winters that killed the unprepared and sharpened everyone else. The next time the cold comes, and it will, and you pull on your jacket without a second thought, understand what that jacket actually is. It is 30,000 years of someone else's suffering, solved, and handed down to you for free.